Charges against Donald Trump will shake up the political landscape as we head into the 2024 presidential election.
So how will this case influence voters and the former president's re-election campaign? Well, joining us this morning is attorney Bernarda Villalona to weigh in on this issue. So good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Yeah, so the judge overseeing this case right now says he wants things to move along, but both sides, they're not back into court until December. A lot can happen between now and then, right?
Yeah, so the next court date is December 4th, but that doesn't necessarily mean that nothing is happening between now and then. So, for example, we had court on Tuesday. Now, the Judge Merchan actually set a motion schedule. So the motions by the defense attorney and the defense team is due by August. After that, the motions and the responses by the prosecution is due by September. A lot will be decided with these motions. These are pre-trial motions that make a huge difference on the trajectory of the case. By December, we hope to get the decisions on all these motions. Now, with these motions, we're dealing with motion to dismiss, possibly motion for a change of venue, possibly a motion to change the prosecutor or remove the prosecutor, also a motion to possibly also remove the judge. You just never know with this defense Trump team, since the form of their attack is pure attack, attack, attack.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the likelihood that Mr. Trump will be convicted of all 34 charges against him? And I mean, what are we talking about in terms of, penalty here? Do we really expect any prison time?
So as you can see, we're still very early on in this process. There's a long road ahead before we even get to a trial or even a conviction, because all we at right now is the beginning, where a grand jury heard evidence, they did hear evidence, and voted on that evidence to return an indictment of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Although that burden is different, a preponderance of the evidence, probable cause to believe that a crime was committed, as opposed to a jury trial where it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, we're dealing with two different burdens. If Donald Trump is found guilty of any of those 34 counts, he's facing a maximum of 4 years incarceration, and that can be consecutive time to each of those counts. But he can also get probation. We're far away from that. We really don't know all the evidence that's been presented. We did get a statement of facts. We know that the number one and the star witness in this case is not Michael Cohen, but the documented evidence, where we're dealing with ledgers, we're dealing with check stubs, we're dealing with invoices, but also there are phone calls, there are text messages, emails, there's a recorded call as well, a recorded conversation, and also the timeline itself. So while we know some of the evidence, we don't know all of the evidence that the prosecution has. But I can tell you that Alvin Bragg is not going to bring a case that he did not feel confident that he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, especially when we're dealing with the former president.
Yeah, and we don't even know if this is going to go to trial. But because this is unprecedented, these charges are things we've never seen before, and it's difficult for even legal experts to understand what these charges are. How difficult do you think it might be for jurors to understand what these charges are?
Well, actually, when you're dealing with falsifying business records, it's not that difficult to make a determination of what is falsifying business records. It's actually one of the easiest charges in terms of a jury instruction for any lay person to understand. All you have to do is break it down. It was like, look at the business records. Are these business records? Yes. Now, in those business records, were these entries made? Yes. What were those entries? That supposedly $130,000, it was actually more, but we're talking about $130,000 was paid to Michael Cohen, and it was labeled and categorized as legal fees. Now, members of the jury, let's determine whether they were actually legal fees. Hey, as an attorney, what's one of the most important things you do with a client? You get a retainer. Was there a retainer in this case? No. And why wasn't there a retainer? Because it wasn't legal fees. It was categorized as that in order to conceal a crime. Now let's move on. What crime are we talking about? And that is where Alvin Bragg hasn't been specific as to the crime itself. And that's something that has to be explained. And I expect a motion for a bill of particulars where defense Trump is going to ask, for Alvin Bragg to be particular as to what is the crime. Is it a tax violation? Is it a campaign fraud? Is it the New York election law violation? But either way, just have to prove one crime or the intent to commit a crime or conceal that crime.
All right. Well, I guess the last question is, and you know he's already attacking the judge who is Latino. He has attacked other judges in the past, Judge Curiel in the Trump University case. How do you think this is going to play with Latino voters, with him constantly on the attack, especially against these two prominent judges of Hispanic heritage?
So this is sad, but we all know the game plan of Donald Trump. And this is not me beating up on Donald Trump, but he does it to himself by his actions and what he says. So Donald Trump, attack, attack, attack. And he's done that. He does it in the media. He does it anytime he actually speaks. And in fact, his own son actually released a photo of Judge Merchan's daughter on the day that he was actually arraigned. So in terms of Latino voters and all voters, it depends where do you stand. But common sense and humanity will teach you, is this okay to talk about a person like this? Is this okay to talk about and put a person's family in the way of danger? We already know how his words have an impact in the sense of what happened on January 6th. And actually, Judge Merchan, who's very respectable, knowledgeable, impartial, and keeps a tight hold in his courtroom, already made mention in the courtroom to try to control people's words because they know it can incite violence. But in terms of Latino voters, it depends, like I said, where do you stand with this?
Right.
You know, this man has already criticized and called some of our countries a third world country, but still you're okay with voting him. His actions speak louder than words. What has he done? What did he do for you when he was president? What does he continue to do?
Exactly.
All right. Attorney Bernarda Villalona, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us this morning.
Thank you.